Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to TNC number 378, the neutral corner, 378. And this is the last show of 2024. Today, we are going to review the year that was in boxing, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. You know how we do here. We don't pull any punches, we let it rip. So, we're going to have some fun. Phone lines are open if you guys want to get in and talk. Give me your opinions. We'll talk about KO of the year, fighter of the year, fight of the year, prospect of the year, all those sorts of things. And then I'll also talk about things that some of the positive things this year, and then some of the negative things, some of the concerns, some of the issues in boxing that continue to hurt the sport and minimize it. We'll talk about that at the American level, and then we'll talk about it at the global level. Okay. But before we get into that, we'll do a quick review of some recent fights that took place in December, just a quick December review, and then we'll do the entire year. Okay, guys. So get in on the chat. Make sure that you crush that like button. And if you're listening on the audio later, same thing, guys. Likes, ratings, reviews, all that good stuff. What do I always tell you? Pay the fee. It's non-monetary. Just get in there and give me a like, a rating, a review, and spread the word. Spread the word about the show. That's all I want. We do word of mouth here. Okay, guys. So let's wrap up 2024, man. This year in general was pretty insane. I mean, just outside of boxing, this was, especially in America, it was a crazy year. We had an election and the politics was insane. So there was just a lot of craziness. It was a difficult year for me and my wife. We had a newborn baby to deal with on top of having a 1-year-old. So having a newborn and a 1-year-old, not easy, particularly when your family is thousands of miles away. My family's up north, her family's out west. So very, very tough year. And, I made my professional debut last year as a boxer, and I wanted to continue that this year. I just couldn't train. I literally could not get out of the house consistently enough to get in a good rhythm to train, to do a fight where I'd feel confident that, okay, I'm not going to go out there and like shit the bed, as they say. So perhaps I can get back into the ring in 2025. We shall see. But overall, this year was kind of tough, and I'm thinking, the 2020s in general have been kind of rough. We had COVID and all that stuff, and the economy's been bad, But I truly, truly believe that 2025 is going to be a great year, and I think, I mean, not just in boxing, but overall, I think it's going to be a great year. So I'm very optimistic about what's to come. I mean that. I truly, truly mean that. Okay, let's get into the review real quick. Let's talk about some recent fights. By the way, you guys see that I'm wearing my Detroit Lions jersey. Important game tonight against the 49ers. I think Detroit's got this tonight. But next week, actually, I think it's this Sunday. It's a short week for Detroit. They have to play Minnesota. And Minnesota looks real good right now. That quarterback's playing well. The team's clicking on all cylinders. They're healthy. I'm worried about that game. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So I'm wearing my home jersey for good juju right now, my Detroit Lions. Okay, let's back up a few weeks to December 7th. We're going to go back to Phoenix, Arizona. ESPN, this is a top-ranked card. Emmanuel Navarrete gets a KO6 win over Oscar Valdez in their rematch. This was a couple of rematches on this card. So Navarrete has now won the WBO belt at 122, junior featherweight. He defended that 5 times. He won a vacant WBO belt at 126, defended it 3 times, and has now won the vacant belt at 130 and defended that twice. He went up to lightweight and tried, failed to win the title there, came back down, defended his belt again at 130. So Navarrete is an exciting fighter, throws a lot of punches. He is an active fighter. He's been one of the more active title holders in recent years. And he has won titles in 3 weight classes, and he has multiple defenses of those belts. However, I don't put him in the elite category of fighters because he is yet to unify. He has yet to fight um, across the street. And winning the WBO belt, particularly vacant WBO belts, that's kind of a in-house top rank thing. Okay. I'm just going to keep it real. The WBO stands for We're Bob's organization, right? Bob Arum's organization. So Navarrete winning a few belts in a few weight classes is impressive. I don't want to take anything away from him, but I want to see him step up and go for a unification against the BC champ, the BA champ, the IBF champ. That's what I want to see from him going forward before I can put him in that truly elite category of fighters. Does that make sense? Because 2 of the 3 belts he won were vacant, and they were in-house WBO belts. Top-ranked fighters win WBO belts. That's just how it works, right? So, and Top Rank's hardly the only promoter that has like a relationship like that with a sanctioning organization. I'm just saying in general. So I want to see more from Navarrete 2025. Stay at 130, dude. That's your limit right now. You can make that weight. You have an advantage there. You're tall as hell for that division. You were freakishly tall at 122 and 126. You're still tall at 130. Let's see some unification. Let's go after those other champions. That's what I want to see in 2025. As for Oscar Valdez, he has now lost 3 of his last 5. But this was his first stoppage. Now, he's been dropped before. He's been hurt before. He's been busted up. We've seen his face busted up before. He's been in some wars, this guy. But this is the first time he was stopped. So I think, it's pretty much done for Oscar Valdez. He's been an entertaining fighter, a good, honest fighter, giving us some great action. I've been very, very privileged to have been ringside for multiple of his fights and always entertaining. But at this stage, yeah, that first stoppage, now that granite, it was never really a granite chin, but I'm just saying now that it's cracked, generally speaking, after that, I don't know. So I think he's on the tail end of his career, maybe 1 or 2 fights in 25 and call it a day. He's had a really, really good career in boxing. Also on this card, Rafael Espinoza improves to 26-0 with 22 knockouts. The Mexican knocked out the Cuban TKO 6 win over Robeisy Ramirez in their rematch. And this was the second defense of Espinoza's WBO featherweight belt, the belt that Navarrete previously held. So Espinoza is a problem in that division, in that featherweight division. He's a problem. Really entertaining fighter, and offensively, just explosive. A lot of fun to watch. He stepped up for the first time last December against Ramirez in their first fight, and since that point, he's become a legit player at featherweight. So I'm very, very excited to see what he does in 2025 and beyond. Both of these guys, there's a lot of work for them to do, but I like this double feature with Navarrete Espinoza. It was somewhat reminiscent of when you got Golovkin and Chocolatito together. I'm not putting these guys on that level. They're not. But just in terms of the bang for your buck entertainment value, I wouldn't mind seeing these guys on the same card again early 2025. I think it could be a lot of fun. All right, let's jump to the big one, the biggest fight of the year. This was the Usyk and Fury rematch in Riyadh back in a week ago, December 21st, and his own pay-per-view. So Alexander Usyk gets a unanimous decision win over Tyson Fury. 116, 112 were the scores 3 times. I thought those were really good scores. I was really, really pleasantly surprised that the judges got this fight correct with the scorecards. There were instantly Tyson Fury fans saying, oh my God, this was a robbery. Fury won. Fury left the ring, refused to do an interview, just immediately walked to the dressing room. And look, Tyson Fury I think he puts on a character for the cameras, because there was a moment that was captured right after the fight where him and Usyk kind of embraced each other and just complimented each other and basically said, dude, I love you. You're my brother. Basically that kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it was. And it was a beautiful moment. And I'm like, man, that's the Tyson Fury we all love right there. But then 5 seconds later, he's the douchebag that leaves the ring and says, "Oh, I want that fight, a bloody robbery," right? And so the Fury fanatics on X have been saying, "Oh my God, this was a robbery ever since." Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. This fight was more decisive than the first fight. Even though Usyk badly hurt and dropped Fury, hurt him worse than he's ever been hurt in his professional career in that first fight. Even though that happened, that fight was still closer than this fight. So I did an immediate reaction video that night. If you guys haven't seen it, please check it out. But um, I I just want to review this fight again a little bit and get, because that immediate reaction video, I mean, that's literally right after the fight, right? So I'm giving hot takes, just off the cuff. And I just want to expound on a few things I said, because I've had a few viral posts lately on X, and they were all related to this fight. I mean, multiple thousands upon thousands of people have responded to a few of these posts that I've made, and I think I got a lot of people's attention with some of the things I said because these were hot takes. And I'm going to be bold and just say what I feel. Real quick, I should mention Sergey Bohachuk with a TKO 6 win over Ishmael Davies in a co-feature. I'm excited to see what Bohachuk can do in 2025 as well. He's a very exciting fighter. But back to Usyk Fury. Look, Usyk is now 23-0, 23 professional fights. That's not a lot. And he's fought pretty much once a year at heavyweight until this year. He fought twice this year. We'll talk about activity a lot later on in the show. But of 23 fights, okay, more than half, 12, have been title fights. They've all been on the road. All of them have been outside of Ukraine. And oftentimes, the majority of them have been in his opponent's backyard, in his opponent's home country. That's super impressive. And 8 of his fights, that's actually more than 1/3 of his total professional fights have been for unified titles. Think about that, guys. 3 undisputed fights, really should be 4. Should have never been stripped of the IBF belt. That's ridiculous politics, right? This rematch should have been for the undisputed championship. But either way, 3 undisputed fights. And now he has a chance in 2025 to be undisputed again at heavyweight, because Joseph Parker, Daniel Dubois are going to fight early next year. And they're going to fight. Dubois is defending his IBF belt that was stripped from Usyk. And the winner of that fight is the logical choice for Usyk to fight next spring, summer. You figure Riyadh season will, Turkey Al Sheikh will throw some money on the table and make that happen. So we're probably going to get undisputed heavyweight again next year, either next spring or summer. And Usyk has a chance to go undisputed again. I talked about this in my immediate reaction video. He had 9 fights in his first 2 years as a pro. I think 8 of those 9 fights were in Ukraine. And those were prospect level fights, right? That level of opponent. But he literally was in the ring, 4 or 5 times a year for his first 2 years of his career, got acclimated to the pro game, and then they went to work. And it's been world title fights. When he moved up to heavyweight, he had 1 or 2, I don't want to call them tune-up fights, but they were basically, let's get acclimated to the heavyweight division. It was with Chaz Witherspoon and then Derek Chisora, right? And then it's like, okay, I got this. Now let's go right for a world title. So it was basically 2 fights to get acclimated, and then let's go to work. What an impressive career. I find it very, very interesting. This guy, he's only had 23 fights. The first 9 were throwaways because it was prospect level fights, right? But from the 10th fight on, every fight has mattered. Even that first fight at heavyweight that I was at in Chicago against Witherspoon, that mattered because it's like, dude, it's your first fight at heavyweight. Guys, the jump from cruiserweight to heavyweight, especially in this era, is the hardest jump to make in all of boxing, and there's no close second. It's the hardest jump to make. So that fight mattered. And also he was carrying a show. So it showed like how he could sell in a different market in America, in Chicago. There's a big Ukrainian population. There was a good crowd there. He actually did pretty well with that show. That was Eddie Hearn Matchroom America show. Anyway, every fight's mattered since then. But what I've noticed is there have been several people, both notable like boxing media people, but also like YouTubers and podcasters and stuff that have started to attack Usyk now, because Usyk is being talked about in the light of an all-time great. He's being discussed as an all-time great because he warrants that now. He's in that conversation, right? And I talked about this in my immediate reaction video. So there are people saying, well, he's only got 23 fights, so I can't put him up there with the all-time greats. I understand that argument to a certain extent, but what I will say is this is a different era, and fighters don't fight more than once or twice a year. The elite level fighters, the contenders, I mean, all of them, they fight maybe once or twice a year. I'll go over a list of fighters this year that only fought once. Literally fighting twice now means you're an active fighter. Think about that. Fighting twice a year now means you're an active fighter. And Usyk fought twice this year. So it's a different era. And then also quality over quantity. No one has done what Usyk has done, at least not in recent times. So look, am I ready to put Usyk up there on a pound for pound all-time great list with like Robinson, Ray Leonard, Armstrong, Tony Canzoneri, Guillermo Papaleo? No, I'm not ready to put him quite on that status yet, okay? But I would say he's right around the top 20 or so fighters of all time. I think you can make a genuine argument. I also think you can make a genuine argument. You guys already know I feel he's the best cruiserweight ever. He's either number one or number two. I have him number one, and I've mentioned the reasons why multiple times on this platform. I won't repeat it here. But you could make an argument he's a top 10 heavyweight. You really, really could, because if you look at the guys he's beat in this era, obviously this isn't the most loaded era in heavyweight history. But if he's able to defeat guys like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, even Derek Chisora, I think that means he's competitive in the 90s. He's competitive in the 70s. I don't shoot the messenger, but the 70s era gets a tad overrated in the American fight press, in the mainstream American media. It truly does. But Usyk would compete in any era of heavyweight history. I think you can make an argument he's a top 10 heavyweight already. And if he gets undisputed again next year, he solidifies that. He puts a stamp on it. So I said a couple of things in my immediate reaction video that got some attention. So the biggest one, and I made a post on X about this, is I said Alexander Usyk was the best fighter of the 21st century. What did I mean by that? Well, I mean that he's the best. When I say 21st century, guys, I'm talking about fighters that did the bulk of their work or their entire career in the 21st century. So a few of you guys are like, what about Roy Jones? Well, first of all, I don't consider Roy Jones a 21st century fighter. The bulk of his work was in the 90s. Let me pull up his box rec real quick, because I just want to give you guys some actual dates, okay? Why I don't include Roy Jones in this conversation. So Roy Jones went pro in 1989, okay? He beat Bernard Hopkins in 93. He beat James Toney in 94, Vinny Pazienza in 95. He moved up to the light heavyweight division in the late 90s, beat Montel Griffin in 97, Virgil Hill in 98, okay? He didn't go up and fight John Ruiz until 2003, and I don't really rate that win. There was some controversy about things that Roy was involved in outside the ring. I'm not going to get into all that, but also his first loss, and actually there's 3 losses in a row from 2004 through 2005. So you guys can see where I'm going with this. Roy Jones, I put him in that previous generation. Okay, I'm going to include him. The bulk of his best work was in the 1990s. Okay, from the 2000s, the best fighters have been Mayweather, Pacquiao, Klitschko, Canelo, Chocolatito, Crawford, and now you're getting into the Usyks, the Inoues, right? Okay. If I'm missing somebody, please let me know. But those are the guys. And I think that most people look at Mayweather and Pacquiao as the two guys that are the best fighters of the 2000s, this century. And that makes sense. I agree with that. My argument is that Usyk is better than both of them in terms of his accomplishments. Now, I know Pacquiao won titles in 8 weight classes. First of all, I don't really rate Pacquiao's title win at 154. That was a bullshit made up vacant belt, and there was a catch weight and all that. But I recognize at least 7, right? And he was lineal champion in multiple weight classes as well. I talked about this in my immediate reaction video. His ascension, Manny Pacquiao's ascension, where he started from to the heights he reached. I've never seen anything like it in boxing. I don't think we ever will again. It was truly one of a kind. There is only one Manny Pacquiao. We'll only see one. So I still rate his ascension as the greatest I've ever seen in my entire lifetime, not just the 2000s. Floyd Mayweather, I think, rates higher all time than Pacquiao because he beat him when they finally did fight. And he's undefeated, right? Now, look, the Manny versus Floyd argument, we can go back and forth. I'm not going to do that right now, okay? But most people rate Floyd higher than Manny, even though you can make an argument Manny, in a pound-for-pound sense, accomplished more than Floyd. You can make that argument. Okay, either way, those two guys, top 2 guys. What makes a fighter an all-time great, what really separates like the best from the best, is guys who take challenges, guys who fight on the road, take extreme challenges, move up in weight, fight guys that would have a real chance to beat them. And then guys that are dominant, but then also guys that, when they are evenly matched, are able to raise their level and find a new level, not just in terms of skills, but to match. If their opponent raises their game emotionally, they can do that. If their opponent raises their game mentally, they can do that. If their opponent raises their game in terms of toughness and grit, they can match that too. If they raise their game in terms of technical prowess, they can match that too. That's what separates the great fighters. Now, Floyd Mayweather had some difficult moments against Castillo, De La Hoya, even Maidana. He had some difficult moments. Even Cotto gave him some trouble at times in that fight. And he was able to adjust and raise his level in those fights. Now, Castillo, you can still argue Castillo beat him, but in the rematch, Floyd won pretty clearly, right? So he kind of put the controversy to bed with that rematch. Floyd was able to match his opponent's game. Like when they raised their stakes, he raised his stakes, and sometimes he raised them even higher. But Floyd didn't take challenges. Floyd didn't fight on the road. He never took challenges. Everything was in-house. Everything was controlled, a controlled situation. That's where Pacquiao's different. Pacquiao took challenges. Pacquiao had rivalries. The fights with Morales, the fights with Marquez, right? He had all these rivalries. Mayweather and Pacquiao was hyped up as this big rivalry. They fought once, 5 years after its due date. They should have fought for the first time in 2008, 2009, 2010 at the latest. That should have been the first time they fought. By 2015, it should have been their rubber match, because I truly believe they would have split 2 fights had they fought that early. I truly believe that. I think Pacquiao would have beat him early on. And I think Floyd would have came back and beat him later on, because Floyd just had more longevity, his style. So Manny took those challenges that Floyd wouldn't take. But Manny couldn't always raise his game. There were times where Manny legitimately lost to guys like Morales and several others, and even guys that hung around were close with him that shouldn't have been. And there were some controversial decisions that went against him that I didn't agree with, but he allowed guys that he was clearly better than to hang around with him in certain fights. So he had lapses. His performances would go up and down, right? They weren't consistent. So Manny was far from a perfect fighter. When I look at Usyk, Usyk is a mixture of Floyd and Manny in the sense that he's got Floyd's O. He's undefeated. He's able to raise the stakes and play chess with these dudes and outpoint them just like Floyd would do. Floyd wasn't knocking guys out once he moved past 130, 135. He wasn't drilling dudes and knocking them out. So even at 130, 135, he wasn't a one-punch guy, right? So Floyd at 40, 47, etc., was playing chess, and he was outmaneuvering guys, footwork, defensive, that shoulder roll, right? Counter punching, outsmarting people, ring IQ. That's how he won fights. And when people gave him a different look, it's something he could adjust. Well, we see that with Usyk. And Usyk gives us what Pacquiao gave us. He's moved up in weight. He's taken extraordinary challenges, the types of challenges that Floyd Mayweather would never even dream of taking, fought on the road, and succeeded. He's literally both of those guys. And then when you factor in that he's only got 23 fights compared to Floyd had about double that, Manny even more. And he's arguably accomplished more because neither one of those guys went undisputed in 2 weight classes. I don't recall that happening. Floyd sure didn't. Floyd barely ever unified titles. Now, Manny was lineal in multiple divisions, but he wasn't undisputed. Usyk's gone undisputed in 2 divisions, the 2 heaviest divisions in boxing. He's made the hardest jump to make in boxing from cruiserweight to heavyweight and continued to be undefeated and done it on the road. He is the best fighter of the 2000s. He is an all-time great. And if you can't recognize that, then there's something wrong with you. Either you don't understand what you're looking at, or there's some sort of political, social prejudice thing happening with you, and you need to work on that and do better. Because this guy's different. He's different. And we're not going to see another one like him in a long, long time. So I'm just putting it out there as a public service announcement. Real quick, I want to share this tweet, and then we'll move on, okay? But I share this because the new narrative now, because now Usyk has a bunch of haters, is that Deontay Wilder would have beat him. I've seen this from multiple people. Multiple people have been saying Deontay Wilder in his prime, I guess Wilder's prime was when he was knocking out a bunch of B, C-level guys, would have destroyed Usyk. Style was all wrong for him. Oh, he would have flattened him. So I posted this. Usyk beats any version of Wilder and rather decisively. The Ukrainian would see his right hand coming from a mile away. He would box circles around Deontay until he was dizzy and drunk. Right now, this has 3.3 thousand likes. So obviously, a lot of you out there agree with my take. But there are a lot of people out there who were butthurt. Guys, I don't want to get into a whole Deontay Wilder conversation, but it's fascinating how overrated he is in the eyes of so many fans that are just, I guess they're astonished by knockouts. There's a stigma around knockouts, a fascination with it, that it doesn't really matter who you knock out. It's just knocking people out makes people really excited. And so now there's this talk of quote unquote prime Deontay Wilder. It's kind of like the way people talk about quote unquote prime Mike Tyson. I guess Mike Tyson's prime was like 3 years, and that's when he was knocking out a bunch of B and C level guys. Sorry, have to say it. Now, Mike Tyson accomplished more than Wilder and is light years better as a fighter, but I do find the narrative, it's similar to the narrative you get with Tyson. That, oh, when he fought Buster Douglas, he wasn't in his prime anymore. Really? He was prime in his previous fight. So what happened? He was a young man. What happened? It's kind of the same thing with Wilder, although I'm not trying to compare them to those two as fighters. Anyway, that's the new narrative, and I find it absolutely hilarious and absolutely predictable. Super chat from Sunil Demon. Thank you so much. What a great super chat, brother. Thank you. He said, Happy New Year, Mike, to you and your girls. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you. He says, thank you for everything you do. 2025 will be a good year. I've mentioned before, I'm a masochist, so my lifelong love is boxing. Yeah, we're all a little bit crazy, right? So no, we're all kind of crazy. It's proper journalists like you that make it bearable. Have a nice bottle of red on me. Dude, thank you so much. I'm leaving that up for a minute. Great super chat, bro. I really appreciate the support, guys. You guys are freaking awesome. All right, I want to make sure I hit everything about Usyk because, again, we're going to be talking about Usyk, obviously, in his all-time great status and all that in the coming months and years, especially if he does get the winner between Dubois and Parker at some point next year. And I believe he will. I believe that will be his next fight. And we may see a situation where he fights only once next year because it'll be like in the summer, maybe even in the fall against the winner of that fight. And that might be his only fight, but he'll be undisputed again. That's huge. Okay, let me make sure. I want to check the phones real quick. You know what? Let's jump to the phones real quick, guys. Let's take a couple of phone calls, and then I'll get into some awards. I'll let you guys know how I feel about the best of this year and some things that I'm concerned about for the future. So let's jump to, I believe this is Hamed over in the UK. How you doing, my brother?
Yes, Mike. How's it going?
Good, man. Good.
I caught the bit of the show. I didn't catch the beginning, but I think some people are going over the top on both sides of the spectrum, if you get what I'm saying, regarding Usyk. And I kind of disagree slightly with you, but I also agree on a lot of points. Like, I do think Usyk is an all-time great, but I wouldn't put him ahead of Pacquiao, Henry Armstrong, or a lot of other fighters. But is he an all-time great? Yeah, I think he is. Like, I don't know what is the criteria to be ranked like an all-time great if you don't rank him. Like, because as a cruiserweight, he's either one or two, and as a heavyweight, he hasn't had the fights. But if you're gonna put guys like Klitschko, guys like Tyson Fury, people are even saying, and Mike Tyson, although I think Mike Tyson has got more of a legitimate case, even though his prime was brief. But becoming a heavyweight champion or undisputed champion at 21 or 20 or whatever that was,
you're right.
That's a unique feat.
You're right.
That's something I don't think. That's something I don't think will ever be broken. But
yeah,
you could make a case. Usyk may be up there with those guys or ahead of them. I only thought quality over quantity with Usyk. Like I said, if he becomes undisputed heavyweight champion and he beats AJ and Fury, which he did over 4 fights, I don't know why. For some people, he had to do it twice, like to get the recognition. But I think it's just a problem with some of the Eastern European fighters. They gotta like beat some of these guys twice to get the adulation or credit. But you can put him there. I just don't think he's done enough to be a top 5 heavyweight. Because some of the guys who I respect are saying he's like a top 3 or top 5 heavyweight. I don't know about that. He hasn't had enough fights, which isn't his fault, but it's too premature to put him up there. I basically wouldn't put him ahead of Pacquiao because I think Pacquiao's the guys he fought, even though he did lose some fights, but the guys he fought, resume-wise, I think a lot more. And his jump from flyweight to featherweight was very impressive. But then what he did at welterweight, and just fighting guys like Keith Thurman at 40 and Antonio Margarito was much bigger. To me, that was, just as unique in his own self. But is Usyk an all-time great? I think he is. Like, I don't know if you heard what Tim Bradley was saying, but he was saying Tyson Fury was an all-time great, but now he's saying Usyk isn't. I'm not the biggest fan of Tim Bradley, but to me it seems like there's a bit of a bias towards top-ranked fighters.
Yeah, Tim Bradley is a bit of a company man in that regard. You know, he just is. I liked him. He's a really good guy, and he kind of plays a role, you know, on that broadcast. And he is a company man. So I think that's what that. I've seen those clips on X this week where people are talking about Tim Bradley's. He's one of the guys that just is kind of discrediting what Usyk has done, and it's just strange. It's just strange to me.
Do you think he's a bit biased? Because he's also put down Inouye at times, and at the same time, he's kind of went over the top with Terence Crawford. I think you could say Crawford, pound for pound, if he beats Canelo, is maybe ranked ahead of even Usyk at that point. But to me, he seems, I don't know if bias is the right way. I don't know if he's just doing it because, like, Crawford and some of these fighters are his friends, but like, I've seen him be a bit overcritical of fighters like Inouye, Usyk, and he's been quite, I think, biased towards his favorites, Fury and Crawford.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's certain people out there that just love them some Tyson Fury. I've enjoyed Tyson Fury's career. I didn't talk about this. I should have mentioned, you know, what does Tyson Fury do next, right? He lost to Usyk twice now. Where does he go? I think obviously he should fight Joshua, and that's a huge fight. And the winner of that fight kind of regains a little bit of legitimacy because they both lost this year. Joshua's loss was much worse, but the winner of that fight gets bragging rights. They would have beaten a former champion. So I think that's an important fight for both of them. And I really hope that's what I don't want to see in Riyadh. I want to see that one stay in London because I think it'd do really well at Wembley, you know? But that's the obvious place for him to go. Now, look, if Fury goes out there and mops the floor with Anthony Joshua, that might stamp his Hall of Fame credential. If Anthony Joshua mops the floor with Fury, maybe that stamps his Hall of Fame credential. There's a lot on the line for that fight. So I'd be interested in watching it. But at this point, I mean, if you can't recognize, I mean, you still got to rate Fury as the second best heavyweight in the world at this point. He might not be, but you have to kind of put him there. And Usyk's beat him twice in a year within what? 6 months, because it was May, and then 7 months, because it was May, then December. So within 7 months, he beat him twice. That's pretty impressive. No one's been able to do that. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with Tim Bradley, bro. I don't know.
I think it's more of the American media and some of the former fighters, because I think I've heard James Toney as well. I don't know if there's a bit of xenophobia with some of these fighters, or they just like biased towards the non-Americans. But you kind of touched on the next point I was going to touch. I do think at the moment you could rank Fury as number 2, but a lot of people would probably rather see him fight Daniel Dubois. Although I don't know if that fight will happen because of they both trade Queensbury and Dubois wants the Usyk rematch. But say if AJ does fight both, say Wilder and Fury, and he loses to both, and Fury does beat AJ, do you think that's enough for Fury to be ranked number 2? Or do you think Fury needs a couple more fights? Because my criticism with a lot of these Fury fans and Fury himself was after he beat Dillian White, which is a good win, they start putting him on a pedestal and saying he's the number 1 heavyweight of this era, one of the greatest, blah, blah, blah. But he hadn't really fought at that time Usyk or AJ or a lot of these other guys like Joseph Parker, Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce. If he beats AJ, I don't know, is that enough, do you think? Or do you think he needs to fight a couple more guys? Because his resume is still, I think, pretty weak outside the, 2 or 3 names he's fought?
Yeah, you're making great points, man. I completely agree. I guess it's all how you look at it. But with Fury, you're absolutely correct in that it was Klitschko, and that win is kind of marked with controversy because he was using performance-enhancing drugs at the time. And then years later, there's the Wilder fights, which were really, really entertaining and all that. But Wilder is so overrated. He's just guys like Parker, Zhang, obviously Joshua, like all those guys, Usyk, were all better than Wilder. And so I give Fury credit for the Klitschko win, but he lost twice clearly to Usyk. You could still make the argument he's the second best heavyweight of this era. But to me, that's not an undisputed argument. He needs to fight AJ. I want to see those two fight. I want to see how they look in the ring together. And the winner of that fight is probably going to be seen as the second best heavyweight of this era after Usyk. But I'm with you. He didn't fight those mid-tier guys. He didn't fight them.
Povetkin, Parker, even Andy Ruiz. Like, you could add a lot of names. I would say if he doesn't fight AJ, I wouldn't mind him fighting Dubois. I know I said that already, but I don't know if that will happen, because to me, the AJ fight should have happened no later than when AJ had, I think, lost to Usyk the second time. I know a lot of people were saying Fury was kind of cherry picking him, but then Fury ended up fighting Ngannou, and that whole thing became a mess. I would not mind seeing it then. It still would have been, a tighter fight. It wasn't the fight we wanted, because we wanted Fury to fight Usyk, but I don't think Fury and AJ fighting back then instead of Ngannou would have been that bad of a consolation. If Fury is going to fight AJ next, then I think, they may as well get that out the way, because they're both coming off losses. Mm-hmm. But, do you think Fury's wins over Wilder are like Joe Calzaghe's win over, Jeff Lacy? Because I've seen some people not give Fury much credit, and other people give him too much credit, I think, for those wins as well.
That's an interesting question. Because Jeff Lacy was one of those guys who was hyped up and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's probably fairly equivalent to that. I guess the only difference with Calzaghe is he went on to beat like Kessler, and then he moved up to light heavyweight and beat Hopkins to become lineal. But he actually at one point held every one of the 4 belts at 168. He wasn't undisputed, but he held all 4 of them at one point. And, that's something that Fury never did. So, and then, the best fights, the top fight of his career, maybe that's Kessler, maybe it's Hopkins, he found a way to win. Fury didn't. So I rate Calzaghe higher than Tyson Fury, and a lot of American fans don't.
Yeah, I don't think that's the question. If Fury had beaten Usyk, maybe there would have been more of a debate, but he beat Kessler, and when he beat Hopkins was rated pound for pound, I think top 3 or 5, quite high. And he went on to beat Pavlik and then Pascal. So I don't think that's wrong or a bold take. But with Fury, I think he needs to maybe have a couple more fights, because he was thinking about retiring after the Dillian White fight. I always thought that was way too premature to be ranked as an all-time great. But I don't disagree with you. One last thing I'll say with Usyk. I do think he's an all-time great. The only problem, if people are going to, criticize is the lack of fights, that's because of his deep amateur background. I think he went to 2 different Olympic cycles. Yes. At that point, I don't think he could have more than maybe 30 fights if he really wanted to. But yeah, I'm okay with if people want to rank Usyk top 10, 15 as a heavyweight. I think as a cruiserweight, there's no debate. He's either 1 or 2. I would say he's 1. I agree with you. But pound for pound, he's up there. It's just some people, I think, are being nostalgia, if you get what I'm saying. But that's a debate for another day, Mike. I'll let you get to some of the other callers.
Okay, thanks a lot, Hamed. Happy New Year, brother.
All right, you too.
Yeah, just following up on what Hamed said real quick. He mentioned Usyk only having, and I talked about this too, only 23 fights. Honestly, guys, that's the future of this sport. That's where we're headed. I'm going to talk about this more later on with the activity level of fighters. It's a concerning thing, but I don't think it's going to change. And with Usyk, he wasn't inactive because of exorbitant purse demands or because he was ducking certain fighters or waiting certain guys out. A lot of his inactivity was due to legitimately to injuries and then waiting for some of these guys to sign the damn contract and then being locked in for a rematch. He probably would have been more active if he wouldn't have had to wait around for some of these rematches to happen and things like that. Fury could have fought Usyk last year. It could have happened last year. He didn't want it, right? He delayed that fight. That's on Fury. That's not on on Usyk. And then the rematch with Joshua, you know, that got delayed and everything. That's not on Usyk either. So, but anyway, I think it's going to become more and more common in this sport to see guys have maybe a dozen quick fights, prospect level fights, and then go right into contention. You're going to see that obviously more and more and more with these guys from Eastern Europe, Central Asia, even the UK, and even I think increasingly from Latin America, Japan. You're going to start seeing it more where they get right to it and they're fighting for world titles 10, 15 fights in. And you're going to see guys retiring with 25 fights. It's going to become more and more and more common. So I think Usyk's resume is going to age extraordinarily well over the next 10, 20, 30 years as we see these types of careers play out where guys have 20, 25 pro fights. They're fighting once a year. Once they start winning world titles, maybe 30 fights at most. You're going to start seeing that a lot. Also, Hamed's call maybe remembers something I said on my immediate reaction video that a lot of people disagreed with. And I just want to expound upon it real quick and then we'll move on, okay? I said that the rematch between Fury and Usyk was the best technical performance I have seen from Fury in a 12-round fight in his whole career. Now, a lot of people shit down my throat when I said that, right? They said, oh my God, the Klitschko fight, it was much better. And then the Deontay Wilder rematch, that was his best performance. Okay. And a lot of people even said the first fight with Usyk was a better performance. Okay, let me quickly break this down. I will say my opinion is that it's either the Klitschko fight or the Usyk rematch are the two best versions of Tyson Fury I've ever seen. Okay. And I stand by that. I understand he dominated Wilder in their rematch. And I want to say it was a 7th round knockout. I might be getting the round wrong, guys, but he dominated and stopped him in the middle rounds. Dropped him multiple times. It was brutal. It was one-sided. And then he had real success at times in the first fight with Usyk. It was able to stop him in his tracks a few times, land some good body shots, some good uppercuts. And he wasn't able to have that same success consistently in the rematch. So I understand on the surface why a lot of you would rate those performances above this last one we had on December 21st. If you're talking about most dominant performance, yes, of course, that's Fury versus Deontay Wilder in their rematch. But what are Tyson Fury's biggest issues in the ring? Sometimes he gets sloppy with his offense. He has major defensive liabilities. This guy's been dropped how many times in his career by how many different kinds of fighters? He relies on his height and his reach so much to avoid punches that sometimes he can get a little lazy and leave himself in a poor position to where he can get countered hard and dropped or hurt or stunned or cut. We've seen all those things with him, right? And then he has these mental lapses where he just kind of checks out and starts showboating and playing to the crowd and doing all this corny bullshit that isn't helping him win a round, right? We didn't see any of that in this fight, this rematch with Usyk. I've never seen Tyson Fury so focused for 3 full minutes of a round for 12 full rounds of a fight. I've never seen it, including the Klitschko fight, because he showboated a little bit in that fight. I've never seen him this locked in, this dialed in, and his defense is better than I've ever seen it. Usyk landed some shots. It's boxing. Some shots are going to land, but he couldn't land the big one. I understand that Fury had more moments in the first fight. He raised his level, in my opinion, and boxed better technically in this fight. His defense was better. He stayed in the center of the ring. He didn't lay on the ropes and be lazy. He had stamina. He had wind in the 12th round. All 281 pounds of him. He raised his level. Here's the point I'm trying to make. This is why I'm mentioning all this. Usyk raised his level too. And Usyk was able to raise his level higher than Fury. Usyk fought better in the rematch as well. That's what I'm saying here. Tyson Fury fought the best technical fight of his career, the best technical 12 rounds he's ever fought. It's either this fight or the Klitschko fight, right? It's one or two. It still wasn't enough because Usyk was able to raise his game to match that and beat him. And this rematch was a more decisive win for Usyk, even though he dropped Fury in the first fight. This second fight, this rematch, was even more decisive for Usyk. So that's what I'm saying, guys. That's where I'm going with this. I still think it was just, I've never seen Fury so locked in. Just no goofing around, no showboating, no nonsense. It was all business. His defense was nice and tight. He stayed in the center of the ring, kept his length, used his reach. Wasn't enough because he was in there against a great, great fighter. That's the general point I've been trying to get to. Okay, let's, super chat from Trent Nonpareil. Thank you very much. He says, Iglesias versus Shevchenko is my KO of the year. What are your thoughts on Iglesias? BoxRec has a new category called IBA Pro. You can see Sugar Nunez's record for an example. Yeah, I saw that. Let me pull that up here. I'll share it real quick on my screen. Okay, 1 second. Here we go. Here we go. Boom, there it is. IBA Pro. So you see Eduardo Sugar Nunez has one fight here that he had this year overseas. And, if you look, you can look at his pro career, right? 28 fights, boom, 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 boom. And then you go to this IBA Pro. That's not the only category BoxRec has. BoxRec also now has a Tough Man Pro category. So a lot of these influencer fights that are, I think, 1 minute rounds, like 3 1 minute rounds, just like Instagram guys, rappers and stuff fighting, are now on BoxRec as well. So there's Tough Man Pro. So BoxRec is expanding to include all these different types of fights. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? You guys decide. Okay. I will tell you this, and it's actually something I'm considering writing an article about for Ring. The fastest growing segment in boxing right now, particularly in American boxing, is influencer boxing and these Tough Man Pro fights. Many of the promoters are small club level promoters that don't know what the hell they're doing. Their promotions fizzle out in a year or two, but these fights are making money. People are getting paid better. Several of the guys that I've trained with in recent years and sparred with and stuff that have legitimate amateur credentials and stuff have delayed going pro to do these fights because they get several $1,000s, where if they went pro, they get like 500, maybe 1,000, or they could do these fights and they get $5,000. They get put up in a casino, they get taken care of, they get 5 Gs. If you get a knockout, you get a bonus. So I know several guys doing that, and they're like, dude, I'm cleaning up. These guys that I'm fighting are chumps. They're just rappers that think they can fight. I go in there and just beat the shit out of them, and I collect $5,000. Like, damn, I can't do them because I have a pro license. Once you have a pro license, you can't do these influencer fights, these Tough Man Pro fights. You can't do like Rough and Rowdy that the Barstool Sports guys do. I think it's called Rough and Rowdy. I have friends that have fought on that, and you can make some bank on them shows. You really can make some cash for the level of opposition you're fighting. So look, dude, BoxRec, I don't know. BoxRec stopped acknowledging the WBA. They no longer list the WBA because I guess they didn't pay them or something. I don't know. But they're including all these other things. So I don't know what to make of it, but I'll tell you guys, there's going to be more of this to come. Definitely more of it to come. BoxRec is going to get expanded more and more, and there's going to be all these different categories, and it's going to be like pro and then all these other types of pro and then amateur that are going to be on there. That's what's coming in the next 10 to 20 years. Trust me on this. That's what you're going to see. Okay. Well, I've seen a few of you guys talk about knockout of the year, so let me talk about that real quick. We had in every year of boxing, you're going to get great knockouts. That's just part of the sport, right? Most of the knockout of the year candidates are fighters that are not well known by like casual fans, mainstream fans, right? It's more diehard type of fans that know about these guys. But we had a few exceptions to that this year. So this year we had Zhilei Zhang score a TKO 5 win over Deontay Wilder in Riyadh. And if you remember, I can't show the clip here. I wish I could, but YouTube will, they'll do their thing. So I can't do it, guys. But I'm sure you remember Zhang hit Wilder with a good shot, and Wilder kind of had this weird reaction where he backed off and started complaining to the ref. Zhang hit him again, and he went down. He was asleep. So Wilder got slept by Zhang. And then Francis Ngannou, who's, a popular fighter, known because of his MMA fighting, as a novice as a boxer, got slept in 2 rounds by Anthony Joshua. So those are well-known popular fighters, right? You don't always see that in knockout of the year candidates. And then sticking with Anthony Joshua, he got slept by Daniel Dubois in 5 rounds in their fight in September. So those were heavyweight knockouts. You don't always get those in the knockout of the year candidate. At least in recent years, we haven't seen that as much. So pretty cool that we got 3 of them, right? And then let's see, Angelo Leo, KO 10 over Luis Alberto Lopez in Albuquerque in August. That's certainly up there. Lucas Badi, the Canadian lightweight, scoring a KO 6 win over Ashton Silva in Tampa in November, a 1-2 combo. So that wasn't a one punch knockout, but it was a really, really short, pretty 1-2, boom, boom. Just a 1-2 combo while Sylvie was like kind of shifting and rocking, and Body just boom, boom, hit him with a short, really crisp, beautiful 1-2. And that was a great knockout. But several of you guys have talked about it. I completely agree with you. The knockout of the year was the Cuban German. I'm going to butcher his name here. Osles Iglesias, southpaw, 27 years old, super middleweight, TKO 5 win over Evgeny Shevchenko. Evgeny, I think Shevchenko was in Montreal back in June. It was a lead right hook. Remember, he's a southpaw. Beautiful one punch knockout that just seemed to come like out of nowhere. Because it's not like Shevchenko was out of his depth in that fight, actually, let me look at his record real quick, because he came into that fight 16-1. Shevchenko did, Russian who fights out of Southern California, and his resume wasn't great. He hasn't been in there with the best fighters, but he's been in there with a couple of decent guys, and he's in the LA gym scene, so he's getting the best sparring in the world. But that hook just came out of nowhere. What a beautiful shot. Oh my gosh. Just an incredible knockout. So that is my pick for KO of the year. And I know a lot of you guys agree with me. Let's go back. We got more super chats. We got a super chat from DLZX4SPQ, just a bunch of letters and numbers. What a great super chat. Thank you very, very much. You guys are awesome, man. I really appreciate you so much. Holy hell. That's a great super chat. So I'm just going to leave you up there, bro, for a while. And no comment or anything. It just pledged. I love it. Thank you so much for the tip, bro. That's great. Let's see. I could do a couple more events of the year. You know what? Sticking with event of the year real quick before I go back to the phones. The event of the year. I'm going to piss off a lot of you purists. I think you know where I'm going to go. I'm not talking about the fight of the year, fighter of the year. I'm talking about event. In American boxing, the event of the year was Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. That's going to piss a lot of people off. I can like, hey, don't throw shit at me. I know I'm making a lot of you mad right now. Hear me out. That fight did tens of millions of viewers. Literally everyone was talking about it. The entire mainstream media, people that never talk about boxing, were talking about it. It did a big crowd down there in Dallas. It did a big rating on Netflix. The co-feature was the women's fight of the year, Taylor Serrano 2, which happened to be the most watched women's sporting event ever, at least in America. So that's pretty big. And the radio was talking about it. Like, I feel like the cable news people were talking about, like, everybody, ESPN, everyone was talking about it. So is it good or bad? Again, you guys decide. It's good that people were talking about boxing. In my personal opinion, it's bad that it was this particular fight. I respect a lot of what Jake Paul has done because he's actually looked out for other fighters, not just himself. And he actually lives the life and does the training. I appreciate that. But him going in there against a 58-year-old guy, and for the world to just be fascinated by the matchup and really think that Tyson was going to win, and they really believe this. They really believe Tyson could be competitive because in their eyes, they just remember Tyson at his height, at his peak. And then they look at Jake Paul and they're like, oh, he's, even though Tyson's 58, he can still mop the floor with this guy. Like they just don't understand how biology works and like age and father time. And I mentioned this before, like there are high school kids that would whoop Michael Jordan in a one-on-one pickup game of basketball right now. And like people have a hard time conceptually visualizing that. I think there is a lot of that related to this fight, but it was the event of the year. And again, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing for American boxing. Probably bad. Probably bad. So more about American boxing later on. Real quick, fight of the year. I could list several candidates here, guys, but just I'm going to go right to it. I thought Virgil Ortiz, his majority decision win over Sergey Bohachuk in August, was the fight of the year. I give that. You may disagree. It's cool. You guys can tell me, some of your favorites, but that fight was two of the top guys in that division. And I know Ortiz just got there, but I think he's one of the top guys already. Ortiz down twice, had to grit it out. It was very, very close. Could have went either way. Could have been a draw. Very, very good fight. I was highly entertained. Upset of the year. I don't think I'll get any argument on this. Bruno Sarace with a KO6 win over Jaime Munguia in Tijuana this month. That was, I want to say it was like, the odds were more than 1,000. I want to say it was like maybe 1,200, like negative 1,200. That's how much of an underdog this guy was. The Frenchman comes in there and stops Munguia. That was huge. That was definitely the biggest upset of the year. Now, prospect of the year. I'm going to give a UK guy a shout and a USA guy a shout. Let's start with the USA guy. I'm going to go with Abdullah Mason. 16-0, 14 knockouts out of Ohio. Southpaw, fights at lightweight, fought 5 times this year. Thank goodness. American fighters fight once a year. This guy fought 5 times. Thank you. He's been a pro for 2 years, 16-0 already. I think a little more than 2 years, but he's fought 5 times this year. So he's my American prospect of the year. UK, Moses Ituma, 11-0, 9 knockouts. Born in Slovakia, but now lives and trains out of UK. Only 19 years old. 19 years old. Southpaw. He's only 6'2", so his height is limited, but he's a legitimate heavyweight. The guy's got the legs, the back, you can see it. He's a heavyweight. I want to say he weighs like 240, 250. Had a really impressive knockout recently this month. So I want to say it might have been the Fury Usyk card, actually. So this dude, he's one to watch. So those are my 2 prospects of the year. We could talk about fighter of the year real quick, and then I'll get to a couple more phone calls. And then I'm going to talk about my biggest issue in boxing this year. So real quick, fighter of the year. I think we only have 3 candidates this year. I don't know how you can have anyone other than these three guys as your top candidates for fighter of the year. It is Naoya Inoue, Artur Beterbiev, and Alexander Usyk. Who else could you have up there? Don't tell me Canelo, because Canelo, in my opinion, had a down year. He fought two kind of hand-picked opponents. The Munguia fight was pretty good as far as his level of opponent. Munguia was a highly rated super middleweight, but then Berlanga, that was kind of just a money grab. So, and I'm not hating on Canelo. He's just at the stage of his career where this is what he's going to do for the next couple of years until he retires. Okay, so he's not up there. It's between these three. And what I find interesting is Inoue, Beterbiev, Usyk are the top three guys pound for pound right now. How often do you get the top three guys rated pound for pound who had the best year in the sport and are the top three candidates for fighter of the year? It doesn't happen all the time. So that's a pretty cool thing. I think most people right now have Usyk as number one pound for pound. They have Inoue number two, and they have Beterbiev number three. That's pretty much, I don't see how you could have any other rating other than that. Those are clearly the top three guys. What's interesting is I talked earlier about one fight a year, right? A lot of inactivity. All three of these guys fought twice this year. So an elite level fighter fighting twice in a year against high level opposition is extraordinarily rare in this sport right now. Now, Inoue defended his undisputed junior featherweight title twice in Tokyo this year and scheduled to fight again next month and defend it again over there. He's a superstar over there. He is every bit the superstar in Japan that Anthony Joshua is in London, that Canelo Alvarez is in Mexico City, right? So he's maybe even a bigger star, honestly, in terms of actual numbers, that like ratings and stuff, people watching his fights in his home country. He's a superstar over there. So I don't expect him to leave anytime soon, because why the hell would you? There's no point to it. So, but his level of opposition doesn't match the other two. Not this year. Not this year. He fought some good fighters, okay, but not at the level of Beterbiev and Usyk. Beterbiev beat Callum Smith, solid fighter, not great, solid fighter, and then Dimitri Bivol to become undisputed at light heavyweight. That Dimitri Bivol win, that's a pound for pound win, right? I put Bivol right there, either number 4 or number 5 pound for pound right now. He's still in the top 5, in my opinion. That was a close fight, could have been a draw. So Beterbiev's opposition is better than Inoue. So I'm going to put Inoue at number 3 for fighter of the year. I'm going to put Beterbiev at number 2, fighter of the year. Number 1, it's Alexander Usyk. He beats Tyson Fury twice. The second time he raises his level and beats him even more decisively. Should be undisputed. He'll have another chance to be undisputed next year, hopefully, if everything works out. But beating Fury twice, who most people rate as the second best heavyweight in the world, that's better than anything anyone else has done, really, in a long time in the sport. So in a calendar year. So he's clearly, Alexander Usyk is fighter of the year. And he's won fighter, I think this will be his second time, because he won fighter of the year, I want to say, when you cleaned out cruiserweight and won the tournament. So this will be the second time he's won it in the second division. Pretty interesting. Okay, let's real quick. Super chat from my man Chris Bergen. What's up, Chris? Appreciate it, homie. You said, will you fight again in 2025? Inactive on BoxRec. Is that what it says? Do they list me as inactive? I gotta look this shit up. That's hilarious. I am inactive. I did not fight this year. I'm yes, it says inactive. Damn. Wow. I gotta look, dude. I want to. I don't know if my life is gonna allow it. I'm 45. I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. I really, really would like to. I'm going to actually get back in the gym next week. I haven't been in the gym for a while, but I'm going to get back in there next week and start moving around and seeing how I feel in the next couple of months, and we'll see. In theory, I'd love to do a couple of fights this year just to say, you know, I got a couple more in and then leave it at that, but we'll see. I'd really like to. That inactive. Ooh, I don't like the way that looks. I don't like it. Gail Falkenthal in the chat. What's up, Gail? She said, agree with you 100%, Montero. I was covering Paul versus Tyson in Dallas, and every aspect was larger than life and well organized. Production at AT&T Stadium was world class. It helps to have Netflix money. 100, Gail. That was the event of the year. That might bother people, but that's just the reality. It was the event of the year. Super chat from Trolls Are Bad. Trolls are bad. I appreciate it. He says, do you believe boxers improve over time? I think what you're asking there is, are today's boxers, today's fighters better than the fighters of before? My answer is yes and no. So I'm going to totally sell out and take the easy road on this. No. What I mean is, and this is across the board for all sports, but boxing and all martial arts are kind of unique in comparison to like team sports. Athletes get better in the sense that, well, I'll just stick with boxing, but fighters today have way better nutrition. There's so much more information. There's supplementation. There's all these supplements you can take to help you heal quicker, recover more. The training regimen is scientifically better, meaning there's a lot of science put into how guys train. And, certain parts of camp are for weight, lifting weights. And then there's the sparring and the skill stuff and the road work. And it's all, mapped out, right? And back in the day, guys just went out and ran and then came in and worked on the bag and did sparring. That's basically what they did. Now these guys are training like true world-class athletes, a lot of these top-level fighters. And hell, even the guys that I'm training with and stuff here in Atlanta, these guys train like literally like NFL players. Some of them are literally former college football players. One of the guys I train with is a former professional hockey player. One of them is a former professional basketball player. So these guys are coming into boxing now and training on that level. So in that respect, I would say they're better. They also have the benefit of having over 100 years of video footage to look at and learn from, and all the different styles and the different scenarios that have played out in different fights. Ali's rope-a-dope with Foreman. Would that work today if someone tried it? Probably not. Everyone's heard about the rope-a-dope and seen it. And, they know that now when they see it, right? So I don't think something like that would work anymore. So you get the benefit of all that knowledge. There's all that knowledge out there. However, the fighters of yesteryear, I don't think this is an exaggeration. We know they were more active. I think you can make an argument they were a lot tougher. They were harder men. It was a harder time living back then. Things are easier now. And I'm not going to call boxers soft, because no, you can't be soft and climb up into a ring. You can't be a soft person, even if you're doing like some amateur tough man competition or something. You're not a soft person if you get up in the ring. But it's easier living now. Guys are not fighting necessarily because they're starving. I mean, you go back not that long ago in boxing, and I'm talking elite level, like pound for pound level guys. They had to get in the ring 9, 10, 11 times a year to feed themselves. Now these guys can fight once a year and they make so much money. They're so overpaid that they can sit on their ass for 10 months a year. So in that sense, I'd say they haven't improved. They've regressed. But then some people might look at it and be like, it's actually progression that they only have to fight once a year. That's a good thing. They take less punishment. So it's all a matter of perspective. So again, I say yes and no. Okay. Let's wow, holy hell, we got a bunch of calls. Okay, let's take a couple of these real quick, guys. Let's go to Chicago, my favorite town. What's up?
Hey, this is John from Chicago here. So it's my second time calling in probably like 10 years or so. I wanted to talk about Usyk and how everyone's like kind of downplaying his achievements. And I really like your analogy where you compared them to Pacquiao and Mayweather. I would say if they both made a baby, that would probably be Usyk.
Yeah.
To be fair, but and with the last fight, I kind of noticed something with Usyk at the end of the fight when he got crashed by Dubois, and the instant that got right there in the middle of his interview with Ade, and his reaction, like, okay, you want to interrupt me right here?
Mm-hmm.
Turkey Al-Sheikh, go ahead, make another fight with me. Here's my chance to be double, two-time undisputed heavyweight champ. So I think if he can do that, and I think he's also has a plan for moving back down to cruiserweight. And I think, and here's a scenario where you might like this, but if Bitterbeef win his next fight and move up to cruiserweight, I think Usyk has been eyeing him for quite a while now.
Mm.
So I think Usyk's planning to move back to cruiserweight after if he can reunify the heavyweight division, basically. So if he can do that, man, this guy's going to be an all-time great. Two-time undisputed heavyweight, two-time undisputed cruiserweight again. Like, I don't think he needs to go to bridgerweight because, like, no one really gives credit to that division, in all honesty, right now. So I think he's looking at the bigger picture where, like, there's no denying that I'm going to be the greatest fighter if I can literally achieve this. If I can clean out the whole heavyweight division twice, come back down and clean out the whole cruiserweight division again, like, if he can beat, who are the other guys in cruiserweight right now? Like Ramirez and Opataya. If he can clear them all out in their backyards, man, this guy will be the most gangster boxer in like the past, 20 years. You know what I mean?
Easily.
So, I'm just curious what you think. If he can actually achieve that, what do you think? Where would you put him at that point? You know what I mean?
Well, I think the next logical fight for him is, again, the Dubois Parker winner. If it's Dubois, he's already seen him.
Dubois might not even win.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Might not even win that.
Parker could easily win that fight. And if Parker wins, then it's great for boxing fans in the sense that it's a new opponent for Usyk, because we keep seeing him in these rematches, right? So it'd be a fresh opponent. So it'd be a lot of fun to see. Now, after that, here's my only issue with him going down to cruiserweight. Right now, there's not an undisputed champion. If Opataya or Ramirez or something was able to clear out that division and win all the belts, and then Usyk could move down and have a guy to fight, or maybe one or two guys to get all the belts, then I think it would make sense. But if he's got to go down there and be, fight like 4 or 5 different times to clean out the division, I don't think there's enough time left in his career. He's approaching 40 soon. He's fighting much bigger guys, so he's taking a lot of wear and tear. He's only got another year or 2 left, if that. So the only way he should go down to cruiser.
He says he has the same.
Go ahead. Sorry.
He says he has the same issue as Pacquiao, where he has to eat so much that it's like he has to try so hard to maintain the mass at heavyweight.
Yeah.
That I think people underestimate that he can probably make cruiserweight pretty easily if he wanted to. Because he was saying how he has to try so hard to eat just to make his normal 223 pounds, and if all he has to cut is 20 pounds, that's nothing for him. You know what I mean? Plus I'm pretty sure he's eyeing that rematch in the pros with Bitterbeef, just because I think that little rivalry with Ukraine, Russia, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind that.
Dude,
so I think there's a little bit of payback there.
If Beterbiev
wants to fight too.
If he beats Bivol again,
both of them do.
If Beterbiev beats Bivol again and then he moves up to cruiserweight, that would just be a great fight. It would supersede all the belts. It would be 2 pound for pound guys fighting each other. That'd be awesome. It'd be awesome.
Yep. I just don't know if Bitterbeef will be able to beat Bivol, man. I think Bivol's in his prime still, and Bitterbeef is come on, he's gonna be closing on 40, dude. He had a shot to clear out the division, and he just took his sweet time, and then all the injuries. But I think, and then I don't know if he's even gonna fight Benavidez if he wins this next fight, because he'll be the mandatory, So would you rather he fight Benavidez or move up straight to cruiserweight right away. What do you think?
I would rather him fight Benavidez. I'd rather him stay at light heavyweight and really make his legacy there. And if he did beat Bivol again for Beterbiev, fight Beterbiev. If Bivol beats Beterbiev this time, well, we'll probably get a rubber match, which is great. But then I want to see the winner of whoever it is between the two of them. I want to see them fight Benavidez. I really do.
I agree with that one. But yeah, if somehow the pipeline, if you get Beterbiev versus Usyk, I think that's going to crown a freaking super pound for pound. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I agree.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for taking my call, Meg. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot, brother. All right, we got salute from Argentina. Appreciate that, Ariel. And then Glenn here says Bam deserves a mention. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Jexdd, Jexdd, who said Bam gets honorable mention as fighter of the year. You know what? You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because he fought multiple times this year. I actually apologize. I should have mentioned him. I would say he's number 4, but behind the 3 that I mentioned, but he certainly is a candidate. Definitely if you think about, every award has, let's say, 5 candidates, and then you pick one. Bam's certainly up there. Absolutely up there. Totally deserves to be mentioned with those other guys for fighter of the year. Okay, let's get a couple more phone calls real quick, okay? Let's jump to Thad. Thad, what's up?
Boy, Mike. Hey, I never thought you would have something in common with Andre Ward and Jermall Charlo being so inactive on BoxRec. So I don't know. Better do something.
I know,
there.
man. I know. I need to do better. I need to do better.
At least you're not holding a title belt hostage.
Yeah.
So thank God about
that. I'm
that.
not holding the division up hostage. So at least
Not at all. But about the upsets with Sriracha, and then you have Anthony Cacace in the same year. I think that's pretty relevant. I mean, 2 guys with the same last names from areas, France and Italy. You don't really expect.
Yeah.
With that guy Sriracha. Yeah. When that happened, I told the guys that's like the toughest Frenchman I've ever seen since the guy in The Sopranos that slapped around Artie Bucco with the Almagnac. Remember, he ripped his earring right out.
Good time. Like, he sent Furio to collect, and Furio got his money.
Oh, that was over. We'll never know what happened there, but Bucco called him a froggy in MF and got handed to him. Got himself handed. But yeah, I mean, now you're seeing these Frenchmen, man. They're coming out of the woodwork, slapping around these American fighters, slapping around these North American fighters, I should say. Hey, America's the new JV squad in boxing right now, and I think we're seeing blowback from that with these bad takes. I'm really surprised, and I'm really upset. And I feel sorry for Tim Bradley. I really like Tim Bradley, but boy, his take on Usyk really is a garbage take and one of the worst I've seen. And it's commonplace with these guys, these media personalities in America, just taking something so sweet. We saw Undisputed, okay? We've saw divisions cleaned out so far, light heavyweight, cruiserweight, heavyweight, and they're shitting all over it. It's almost like this disease that Mayweather brought. And I've always said it was a Mayweather disease that he brought to American boxing, where he conned the public. Good for him. Safety first, buy my pay-per-view, and then he holds and runs and cheats and all this. And it's carried over into an era of American boxing that's absolutely disgusting. And it was going on with Andre Ward, continuing on to Tank Davis. And it reminded me of something like in a, say, Rocky movie, right? He fought Drago, in the name of Apollo, right? And if this were today's era of American boxing, you'd have Tank Davis after Drago killed Mayweather. Tank Davis, instead of fighting Drago, he would run straight to Spider Rico, for a rematch. That would be the main event in the Rocky IV. It would be Tank 4. Oh, I'm going to fight Spider Rico for a rematch, and you guys, I'm going to charge you $80 for it. That's what a Rocky movie would be, because that's the culture right now in American boxing. It's bottom barrel, it's tacky, it's just weak, and this is where we're at So people are actually agreeing with these bad takes. Oh, well, Deontay Wilder, this. He knocked out 40 people in a row. He fought tomato cans. He was protected. He never fought any worthwhile top quality fighter until later in his career. He got exposed.
One of the best, well-managed careers we've seen in a long time. They did a brilliant job managing that guy's career.
And they did, and they made him money, but they cost them money at the same time. They could have cashed him out for that $100 million DAZN deal, but they didn't want to give DAZN any kind of inkling there. So, with Shelly Finkel, they managed him great. Shelly Finkel even said, "Hey, Wilder's a baby champion. We don't want to put him in with Klitschko and Povetkin and Vitaly Klitschko and Ruslan Shagayev in that era, because Wilder was part of that era of Vitaly Klitschko. They just kept him away from him smartly. Even a Ruslan Shagayev would have smoked him. Yeah. That's why I always regret that fight not happening with Povetkin. I had $10,000 put on Povetkin at straight even money for that fight, and I thought he would knock Wilder silly. Unfortunately, never got to have that fight, but I digress, because what I'm trying to say is American boxing and the media's take on American boxing is just weak. They're just delusional. They're not seeing the forest through the trees in the goodness that's being brought by Turki Al-Sheikh and this new era of fighters. And they're not from North America. Okay. They're from the Far East. They're from Europe. It's a new brand of fighter. They're willing to fight the best, give us the best fights for the best price. As a boxing fan, we love this. But unfortunately, for tribalism purposes, we get people saying, well, Andre Ward could come out of retirement right now and beat Usyk. Oh, really? The same way he ran into retirement to avoid Arthur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. That same guy? Okay. Yeah, sure. It just doesn't end. And I was joking when I told you on your last podcast. I said, hey, Usyk should call out Wilder, fight him. But unfortunately, I think that's a necessity now. I mean, you can't really sell it except to the idiots that buy the PVC garbage. I mean, but people are out there thinking that a prime Deontay Wilder, what is a prime Deontay Wilder? There's no such thing, that he would beat Usyk. It's just a horrible take altogether. But I think Usyk, if he was, cagey here, he said, yeah, I'll fight Wilder. I'll fight him, and he'll just absolutely take him apart. 2 left feet Wilder against Usyk. That'll be very funny to watch. But this is what these idiots want. Where were the egg weights with Fury, against Usyk? How come those egg weights, it didn't affect Usyk the same way they affected Wilder? You don't hear them talk about that anymore. No, the narrative's changed. They change now, that, oh, well, Usyk only has 20 fights or whatever. Yeah, because he never fought any tomato cans. He's fought all winning fighters. Same thing with Lomachenko. Same thing with a lot of these new breed fighters, like you alluded to earlier. It's a change. It's a change in culture. You don't see these padded records anymore. You don't see guys just fighting a guy in a mall, and who has 80 losses. Those fights don't mean anything. If you look at the statistics, someone did a comparison of Usyk and Ali, who I loved. Usyk's strength of opposition and title challengers that he fought were at a much higher rate than Ali.
Fad, can I tell you something? This is gonna piss people off. Usyk's technically better than Ali. He's got better defense. He's got better footwork. He doesn't get hit as much. I remember talking to Bob Canobio, who is the founder of CompuBox, and
I know who he is.
I was interviewing him for a thing, but they did a study on Ali's fights, the punch numbers, and they were shocked at how often he got hit. Ali got hit a lot. Usyk doesn't get hit a lot. His defense is better than Ali's. His footwork is better. Yeah. Ali's faster. Ali's chin durability was fantastic, but there are things Usyk did better than Ali. You're not allowed to say that, but it's true.
No. Yeah, they don't want to hear that. I mean, that's going to anger a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Someone's going to take that clip and post it on X tomorrow. You watch. Going to do fucking YouTube videos about that clip.
You don't want to say, oh, that Andre Ward Super 6 that was Fugazi was better than Undisputed in 2 divisions. Right. You don't want to say anything to discourage those people either, because, boy, they'll have a a fit too. And for some reason, that still lives in infamy. I have no reason to believe why. I mean, that half the people in that tournament didn't even compete. They dropped out after the first fight. I mean, Jermaine Taylor, for instance, and Jarrell Ward got to fight in Oakland the whole time. It's just, these guys, they sour the sport. And unfortunately, they're not boxing fans. They're fans of whatnot, and they're using boxing to, push their message and narrative through boxing. And I think boxing has to distance themselves through these podcasts and these, whatever they're called, the YTBC or no, the LDBC, like those idiots. I mean, it's Sully's boxing, and here we are that people are talking more about Devin Haney and him suing Ryan Garcia for battery, having his wife or baby mama crying at a jail, and him looking like a sucker. It's like this one big soap opera where nobody's fighting each other. They're just bickering like two old ladies in a supermarket line arguing over whose blueberry muffin has more blueberries in it. These are the people right now that have taken over our sport that we love, and they're turning it into some just monstrosity of weakness. It makes me want to puke. I just hope, people can just distance themselves from these people, because they try to make it about them. Just tell them, look, you're always going to be a loser. You'll never be associated with so-and-so. Okay. So you may look like him, but you're not him. Just beat it, get out of here. And this is what we have to do to these people. Get them out of boxing. Just be a loser somewhere else. Stop infecting us with your crap. Who cares if you look like some idiot, some boxer? You're not him. I mean, stop. That's what we need to do. I think they'll go away eventually when no one pays attention to them. But it's gotten to that point, Mike. But I'm going to let you go. But before I do, I want to get your opinion on this. I was laughing at Michaela Mayer versus that Sandy Ryan fight. I never knew that she got paint thrown on her before the fight, and I was like, what was that all about? And I finally found out. But I guess she was taking pictures of herself, like with no clothes on, with the paint on her. I thought, like, wow, I never knew Sandy Ryan was good looking like that. I was like, wow, she really.
I didn't know that.
She really looks good. Yeah, I'm like, whoa, look at that, like with the paint on her and everything. I'm like, wow. So am I wrong for thinking that Sandy Ryan might be one of the sexiest girls in boxing right now, or am I off? Like, I don't know. I know there's a lot of them, but I think she's probably top 10
boxer. I'm Googling to see if I can find these photos. Let's see.
Sandy Ryan. Yeah, she took like a nude selfie in her hotel room, I guess. After it happened when she got changed. And, yeah,
it's a very interesting artistic photo. I'll just leave it at that.
Very, I must say. I have to say, yeah, I was quite impressed. So I was just thinking, I never looked at her like that. I'm just like, wow, she really is. Damn, I gotta say, one of my favorite fighters now. I guess I'm following her. But that's what we need in women's boxing: them to be bickering about that stuff, like catty stuff. Like, oh, well, you're this and that, and they could argue, because that's a great thing when the women do it. But when men do it, calling each other names and acting like the women, that's no good for boxing. And that's what American boxing is right now, with these guys on social media like Haney and all these other twerps. It's just
the Gen Z American boxers, bro. It's rough.
Yeah,
that's rough.
Ruining our fun. Finally, I thought, all right, we're going to have some closure on a lot of issues, with all these fights taking place. But no, it's just more of these bad takes by people that actually are respected, and they're just putting stuff out there, and it's embarrassing. Like Tim Bradley, just come on, man, wake up. Sober up, dude, before you make those takes. It's embarrassing. All right, Mike, I'll let you go. Have a nice New Year.
You too, brother. All right, there he goes. Before I get to some more calls, I'm just going to get into this because Thad kind of mentioned American boxing and some of the issues. And I wanted to talk about this because, I talked about the best of this year. I got look at my notes here, but it's worth, talking about, if you're going to talk about the good, you have to talk about the not so good, right? You have to. Most media doesn't do that. They just talk about good, puff, 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 right? Everything's fluff. But here, I'm going to talk about this. The biggest issue in the sport right now is inactivity. It's the biggest issue by far. There are several that we can point to. And it's an issue that is global, but it's most prevalent in American boxing. So I'm just going to read off some names, okay? Terrence Crawford once this year. Every name I'm about to read fought once this year. Terrence Crawford, Gervonta Davis, David Benavidez, Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, David Morrell, Martin Bakole, Caleb Plant, Akhmad Dialev, Lomachenko, Alam Kanala, Chris Eubank Jr. All these guys fought once this year. Now, there are different reasons for some of the guys that they were out, but a lot of these American fighters, particularly those with PBC, this has been an ongoing issue for the last several years, really in the whole 2020s. And Terrence Crawford's the one that I really, really hit on, because I don't think any of you out there would argue that post Mayweather, Terrence Crawford's the best American fighter. He's the best American fighter since Floyd Mayweather. And he has fought once a year for the last 5 years. 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24. Fought once. I give you a pass for fighting once in 2020. But after that, once a year. And he's probably going to fight once a year next year. He's probably going to fight Canelo either in May or September for the big money fight. And that's going to be it for the year. So it's probably going to be 6 years in a row next year that the best fighter in America, the best American fighter of this generation, has fought once a year for the better part of a decade, more than half a decade. Like, that is unsustainable. How do you build a product when you're fighting once a year? It's impossible. Gervonta Davis, it's interesting that people still call him a young fighter when he's, 30 now? I want to say he's 30 years old, be 31 next year. Fought once this year. He fought once in 2022. He did fight twice in 23. But if you go back from 22, 23, and 24, those 3 years, he fought 4 times. He fought 4 times over the last 3 years. If he's the face of boxing, if he's the new guy, and he's fought 4 times in 3 years, and look at his opposition. I'm going back to 2022. Raleigh Romero, Hector Luis Garcia, then a weight-drained Ryan Garcia, Frank Martin, and now he's going to fight Lamont Roach. That's it? That's your face of boxing? Guys, in 2024, we had overall a good year in boxing. We got 3 undisputed fights within 7 months of each other, because we got Fury Usyk 1, and then we got Bivol Beterbiev, and then Fury Usyk 2, all within just over 6 months. That's pretty amazing, right? That's 3 undisputed. I know the rematch for Fury and Usyk wasn't undisputed, but it should have been. You guys get what I'm saying. Number 1 versus number 2, okay? You're getting that 3 times in a calendar year. That just doesn't happen in boxing much these days. But think about this. None of those fights featured an American fighter. None of them. Terrence Crawford fought Israel Madrimov. It was an interesting fight. It was a good fight, but it wasn't a great fight. And it was in Los Angeles. I'm just looking up Madrimov here, his box rec real quick. It was in Los Angeles, big market, and all that. I get it. But the show was kind of a dud. It wasn't that well received. The numbers didn't really work out. They didn't make money. And the fight was kind of inconsequential. So now Crawford has the WBO interim belt at 154, but he hasn't fought since. Meanwhile, Madrimov's about to fight Virgil Ortiz in February on that Beterbiev Bivol rematch card. So if Madrimov wins that fight, then suddenly the Crawford-Madrimov fight becomes a little more relevant. But what happens if Ortiz wins that fight? The Madrimov's lost 2 in a row, and that really kind of puts a damper on Crawford's win over Madrimov. And again, he's the face of American boxing in terms of being the best fighter of this era. Then the face of boxing commercially is supposedly Gervonta Davis. He fought once this year, and he's got a fight scheduled for next year. It's against another guy who's moving up in weight, another contender that is moving up in weight. So it's inconsequential. It doesn't mean shit. And it's going to be on pay-per-view, and maybe 100,000 people will buy it, if that. There's major problems here, guys. The three biggest fights this year, I mentioned them. Usyk Fury 1 and 2, and then Beterbiev Bivol happened over in Riyadh. It didn't happen in America. They featured non-American fighters, not even North American fighters, but specifically Eastern European guys and one UK guy. That's who it featured. And then you think of some of the other big events this year. Joshua Ngannou, that was a big event, right? I'm not saying it was the best fight, but it was a big event. 2 non-Americans. Joshua Dubois, 2 non-Americans. Now, Zhang Wilder wasn't really a big event, but there's one American guy that was in there. How'd that fight go? By the way, all this talk about Wilder beating Usyk. Who are Wilder's 3 best opponents? Tyson Fury, Zhang, and Parker. How'd those fights go? Yeah, but he's going to beat Usyk. Okay. So there are major issues in this sport in America right now. And I talked about this earlier in the show. The 1 fight a year thing, 2 fights maximum. I was thinking about this when I was thinking about my fighter of the year. And I was like, man, it wasn't that long ago to where the fighter of the year fought 3 or 4 times. And then it wasn't too long before that where they were fighting 5 or 6 times a year. Right. But it really wasn't that long ago that when you think about fighter of the year, just as a fan, I was just a young fan, the guy fought 3 or 4 times that year. All the candidates that you were, thinking about. And now literally it's 2 fights a year. And you're like, oh, okay, this guy's ahead of the pack because he got 2 fights in. That's where we're at. Crazy, right? So I don't, again, this problem is not going to get any better. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. The biggest reason for the inactivity, I think a lot of people out there don't understand this, is that the fighters are overpaid. In one respect, I love that the fighters are making so much money. That's great. But because if I'm guaranteed $10 million a fight, but the ticket sales, the pay-per-view sales, the sponsorships I bring in, all of it, only bring in $5 million, then I can't fight but once a year. And I have to fight against a foreign guy that's going to bring in foreign TV money to make up the back end and to try to break even. That's where we're at. So a lot of these guys are fighting once a year because they're overpaid. But there's money being thrown around in boxing. And so these promoters get into these bidding wars for fighters, and they sign these exclusive deals. So fighter, I'll go to one promoter and say, hey, I want this guarantee. And they'll say, okay, we'll give you that. We'll give you $3 million a fight. Okay. But then it can be like, okay, let me think about it for a couple of weeks. And then I could go to this other promoter and be like, hey, they're offering me 3. Can you do 4? Okay, you could do 4. I'll sign with you. And that's what happens, right? So they get into these bidding wars, and then these promoters overpay the guys. And now they have to sit on their butt for 10 months a year, then get in camp for a couple of months and then fight, because they just don't bring in the ratings and the revenue to justify, to match the purse demands. That's where we're at. And I don't see that problem getting any better. Now, as it relates to Turki Al-Sheikh, as a fan, I'm happy that he's making the fights. Again, I mentioned the 3 biggest fights this year. I'm just looking at it here on my notes. They're all Riyadh season cards. I even mentioned some of the other heavyweight fights that were interesting, all Riyadh season cards, right? If it wasn't for Turki Al-Sheikh in Riyadh season, 2024 would have been a disaster in boxing. A disaster. So what does this mean? Is it good? Is it bad? Is what's happening over in Riyadh, is it sustainable? I don't know. But I know that the fighters are getting overpaid. But at least Turkey, Allah Sheikh, is he overpaying the fighters? Yes. These events are not making money, but that's not the point of what they're doing over there. But at least he's making matchups that matter. All these other guys, all these other promoters, these networks, they're overpaying fighters too, but they're putting on shit fights for the most part. At least Turkey Allah Sheikh, yes, he's part of the problem in the sense that he's overpaying the fighters, but he's putting on great fights. So in that respect, I'm a fan of Turkey Allah Sheikh. I'm happy he's in boxing. If it wasn't for him right now, guys, we wouldn't have got Usyk and Fury. We wouldn't have got basically probably 80% of the great fights we got this year, the great events, we wouldn't have happened. Maybe even more than that. So think about that. And it's interesting that there's people out there hating on Turkey and all this. It's like, really? Okay. Let's go back to the phones. I'm going to try to do a few more quick calls, guys. Let's go to Nacho. What's up, Nacho? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Mike? To quote Mo Sislak about your event of the year, boo, string him up. Because that's a horrible fight, Mike. I get why you picked it, but at the same time, the rest of us hardcores feel just like that. So, that's an awful event of the year, but I guess, we have to live with it. Really quick, I have a question for you, Mike, before I start. What do you think about Hollywood making a movie about Clarissa Shields, even though she's not done fighting?
So I'm not going to watch that movie. I'm not interested in it. It's going to be a puff piece. I can tell you right now, Nacho, it's going to get critical acclaim. It's going to win awards. It's going to be on all the award shows. It's not going to be very accurate. And I'm just not very interested in it. Hollywood is out of ideas, and good for them for doing this. And I hope it does well, but I'm just not interested. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay. Well, the only reason I asked, Mike, was because there is I guess it's been confirmed, they are going to make a biopic about Christy Martin, who's been done fighting for over a decade. So I just find it interesting that Hollywood goes and makes a movie about an active fighter that is not done fighting, but then they finally decide to make a movie about a fighter that finished fighting well over a decade ago.
Well, one fighter fits certain agendas, the other doesn't. I'll just leave it there.
Okay. All right. And then, what's it called? I don't disagree with too many of your picks except for event of the year. Knockout of the year, while that was a good knockout, the one that you picked, Mike, I still say the Ashton Sylvie knockout was probably like the nastiest one.
It was pretty,
just based on how that dude got hit with the 1-2 and just it was lights out before he even hit the canvas. So
yeah,
that's a pretty nasty one.
Yeah,
so
like to land
I think I disagree
a
on that
1-2 so short. It wasn't a long 1-2. It was boom, boom. It was like in the inside mid range, and it was pretty and it was nasty. You're absolutely right, bro.
Yeah, and then I got a couple of fights that were made that I'm curious to hear your take. Bakole versus Jagba. What do you think about that fight?
I like it. I got to go with Bakole. He's got more intangibles and freakishly long arms. And he seems to have a sturdy set of whiskers. He only fought once this year, but it's because he's being avoided. And I actually talked to his trainer a week or two right before the holidays for a piece I was doing for Ring Magazine. It's actually going to be in the next issue where we talk about some heavyweights. And he was just giving me some of the inside scoop about some of the crap they've been through. They've really been avoided by everybody. So I give Jagba credit. And I like that it's for and it's an eliminator, and that he'll be in line for a championship. But I got a favorite Bacole. But that's another one that I'm excited about, bro. I will say this: we've gotten some really good heavyweight matchups in the last couple of years. We really, really have. It's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other one was they just confirmed it. I guess about a week or so ago, the Teofimo versus Matias. What do you think about that one?
Interesting fight. It's not the fight that I'd want, but it's an interesting fight. And as with Teo, it's always which version shows up. Is he going to be focused? All this kind of stuff. I think if he's focused on this A game, he's a big favorite in that fight, in my opinion. But Matias will give him a good push.
I honestly, I'm surprised, Mike, they signed off on this fight because he's added Eddie Reynoso to his team. So I would have thought that Eddie Reynoso would have said, you know what, let's get a couple of fights under your belt. Let's kind of implement what we're going to do as far as like tweaking your style and adding some new wrinkles. I'm kind of shocked that they're jumping into the deep end against a Matias right away. I mean, I wouldn't expect that considering he just added someone new to his camp.
Yeah, I hear you, but I like it. Why not? And I'm sure on their end that the money's right and they like the deal, and so they're going for it. They must see something in Matias. They went after Loma when everyone was avoiding Loma. They went after Taylor when a lot of people weren't lining up to fight him. So, if Teo goes out there and puts on a great performance and beats Matias decisively, he deserves a lot of credit. Of all the Gen Z boxers and stuff in America, him and Bam are guys that they do seem willing to take challenges, and they deserve credit for that.
Okay. And then lastly, Mike, the other fight that I was going to bring up. Oh, there's a rumor going around that Christian Mbili and Kevin Sajo are fighting in an eliminator next. Do you have a pick in that fight?
Mbili, because I truthfully don't know much about the other guy, so I'd say Mbili.
The other guy's a monster. He fights exactly like Mbili. The only difference is that he's been fighting in France, and unless you've like really been following him, you don't know anything about him. To be honest, Mike, in my opinion, having watched Sajo fight a couple of times, I honestly picture this fight, if everything goes right, to me it could be the new version of Hagler Mugabe. It could be that kind of a war.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to watch out for that, bro.
It could be that kind of a war. If
I was going to say I don't know the guy that much, so that I take your word for it. But damn, that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, he's nasty. He's been knocking out like a lot of his opponents because he's got a pretty high KO percentage. They've moved him along pretty good. Like he hasn't fought too many, top super middleweights, but he's fought a pretty decent amount of opposition that maybe they feel like the time is right to take on a guy in the top 10, 15 and a guy like Mbili. So I think it could be fireworks, Mike. Let's just put it that way. We could be talking about that one being fight of the year at the end of next year if everything goes right.
Wow. So, yeah, I'm just pulling up his record here. He's pretty much only fought in France. His last fight was in the Bahamas. He fought once in Manchester, it looks like. So, yeah, he just hasn't had a chance to fight. He fought a couple of decent guys. Giovanni De Carolis, he's a good fighter. So he's fought a couple of decent guys. Diego Chavez. So he's fought some experienced guys. But, I mean, obviously this would be a big step up. But, yeah, dude, I admit I haven't seen much of him. So he says he's 34 years old. So he's as ready as he's ever going to be. I need to check out some of his stuff, man. I'll check him out on YouTube tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Take a look at him, Mike, and then maybe you'll have a better pick later on down the line.
Okay.
For sure. And then just the last one I wanted to bring up. Do you you brought up Inoue not really having to leave Japan at any point in time to to come to the U.S. again or fight anywhere outside of Japan, the rest of his career. There was a rumor supposedly that Top Rank was trying to coax him into fighting Junto here in the U.S., especially possibly here in L.A. Do you think if they threw enough money at it, that fight could happen here in the States, or is that strictly going to be an all Japanese, fight over there?
Money talks, and there's a large Japanese market in Los Angeles. So I mean, I could see that happening. It would the money would have to make sense. I like Nakatani a lot, and that's obviously the fight that Akhmadiev is there too for Inoue, but Nakatani, that might be like a pound for pound type of fight coming up in the next year or two between him and Inoue. But it is all Japanese, and if they did it in Tokyo, it'd probably be the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. So it'd be hard to lure that away and bring it to Los Angeles. It would be. The money would have to be substantial.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, okay. All right, Mike. Well, I'll talk to you next time when you got another show. Hopefully, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, we'll try to do another one soon, bro. Absolutely.
All right, cool.
Happy New Year,
man.
Nacho.
Happy New Year.
You too, bro.
All right, man.
All right, guys. Yeah, I will fully admit I do not know much about Kevin Saggio, but a lot of you guys in the chat are saying he's legit. So, okay, if that fight happens, I'll be really interested in it. And then I'm going to do some homework and check this guy out tonight and watch some of his stuff on YouTube, see what I think. Yeah, a bunch of you guys in the chat are saying that. Here, and Domo says, I'm sure Mbili himself does not fancy that fight. Wow. So he's coming. You guys are giving him a high regard. And I saw Ceylon up here was talking about Clarissa Shields already has a movie about her. I thought so. I forgot about that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think she already. So this is like the second movie about her. And Clarissa's just one of those people that it's kind of like the WNBA. I'm sorry I have to make this kind of reference, but like Clarissa Shields doesn't make any money on her fights. She's kind of subsidized by a lot of women's boxing is subsidized by men's boxing, and it's changing a little bit. There's some fighters, especially in certain markets, it's changing, but Clarissa just doesn't sell. She's a really difficult personality. And so Hollywood's going to try to put a bow on this and make it pretty and beautiful and push this story, but it's not necessarily going to correlate, I think, to anything in her boxing career. But it's going to be, one of those movies that I think it's a lot of awards and stuff and does very well. But yeah, she's already got 2 movies about her and she hasn't even retired yet. She's doing pretty well. Okay. Let's see. We got a question here from Trent. He says, Boazzi versus Callum Smith, who you got? That's one of the fights I reviewed in my piece for Ring Magazine. It's going to come out in the January issue of the mag. That's a really interesting fight, dude. The biggest thing for me is, first of all, this is a big step up for Boazzi. He hasn't really fought anybody. As long as he's been around, he hasn't fought anybody. And for Smith, my question with him is, he's been in a lot of fights, a lot of tough fights. He's had a lot of mileage. Is this that fight where it's really going to start to kind of show? So on paper, I'm going to favor Boazzi in this fight. Okay, my wife is coming in and telling me it's time, guys. Okay. It's fight. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. All right, guys. I'm sorry. We got a bunch of people on the phones. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta let you go. Yeah. All right, guys. My wife says I could take a couple more calls, but they have to be 2 minutes each. So you got 2 minutes. So 2-minute rounds. Here we go, real quick. We're gonna go to 601. What's up?
Mike, man, this is Joe Morgan from Mississippi. How you doing, brother?
Joe, what's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm currently in England. I've been here for 3 weeks, visiting my other half for the holidays. So it's good to hear from you, man.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I hope you're enjoying it over there.
Yeah, I've been over here. Man, it is fantastic. I landed in Heathrow, and the first thing I saw was a Usyk Fury 2 poster. So,
How cool is
man,
that?
I've been. I know she loves me to death, and she even let me watch the fight in the middle of the night here. So I absolutely loved it. But Matt, all I really wanted to say, honestly, was I hope you and the family are having an absolutely fantastic 2024 and a great 2025. Man, it's just that's all I really wanted to say. It's just it's been forever since I hollered at you. I'm over in a part of the world I never thought I'd get to see, and with such a great boxing fight for 2024, I'm glad we all kind of got to come together and see a fight that honestly I know I've been wanting to see. So, I mean, I just turned 42 the other day, so I've been wanting to watch since I was 13, 14, something like that. So I'm glad we got another undisputed fight in. Well, it wasn't really undisputed, but it should have been undisputed.
Right.
But
right.
It was an absolutely amazing fight, and other than that, man, I hope you and the family are doing absolutely fantastic, man. It's good to talk to you. It's been forever.
Yeah, Joel, it's so good to hear your voice, man. Enjoy UK and safe travels back, and best of 2025 to you and yours. I really do think this is going to be a great year. I feel I just have this positive feeling about 2025. I think it's going to be a great year, bro. So, man, I'm jealous that you're over there chilling in UK, and I'm over here changing diapers.
Yeah, I've been here for 3 weeks. I fly back on literally on New Year's Day. But
okay.
It's been a fantastic Christmas. So I don't think I'll ever get to do this again, but I'm so glad I got to do it. And man, the vibe here for that fight.
Oh yeah.
You know, I landed 10 days before the fight. The vibe was insane. Literally, the second I landed in Heathrow, I've been there 5 minutes, and the very first TV that I saw was wearing an Usyk Fury 2 poster. So it's just, man, I missed Joshua Klitschko. You know, I'm a massive Klitschko fan. I wasn't here for that fight, but just, man, UK fans, man, they come out for a fight.
Yeah.
They really, really do.
It's on another level.
It really has been on another level, man. It really has. But man, absolutely, like, Merry Christmas to you, man, and freaking happy 2025 to you and your family, brother.
Same to you, brother.
You take care, man. It's good to talk to you guys.
All right, bro.
All right, man.
All right, there he goes. All right, guys, we're going to do one more call, and then we're going to wrap it up for the year. 631, the last caller of 2024. Go.
Hi, Mike. This is Keith Yassenstedt out in California.
Keith,
Merry Christmas.
what's up,
to you,
man?
Tiffany. How's it going?
Good, man. How you been?
Good. Just did a nice long hike. Took a couple weeks off work and business. Thank you. Tell Tiffany I said thank you. I'll try and keep this quick. I hopped on late. I didn't really hear your pick. I want to actually just make a couple points about fighter of the century, Usyk. I agree. I agree with what you said and what other people said. Just all of his accomplishments, the fact that, you know, he won in the cruiserweight. Specifically, I'm emphasizing the fact politics. He fought in Russia. He won a unanimous decision in Russia. It's almost unfounded. The fact that that Ukraine has been pushed into war by another country, I think we all know. It's really impressive, and obviously his run at heavyweight. Regarding Mayweather and Pacquiao, I'll start with Mayweather first. I spoke to someone very, very close to him over the phone. They work in finance. I'll give you a hint. And he told me specifically that Mayweather waited Pacquiao out for competitive. One of the reasons for competitive advantage is obviously for the money. And in regard to Pacquiao, I might catch a lot of flack for this. Pacquiao's ascent from 135 pounds to 154 pounds, in my opinion, is overrated. If you compare it to Usyk, because Pacquiao fought De La Hoya, Cotto, and Old Mosley, guys that were kind of past the prime or catch weights that were ripe for the picking. Personally, I don't think Pacquiao did that intentionally. His team did that, and I think technically too, he's more of a 7-division champion because he didn't fight for an apple belt when he fought Ricky Hatton. He just fought for Leniel, so I guess it can go either way. But I think Usyk's great, and the fact that he's so stoic and humble as well too kind of really elevates him, and it also just shows that with the fall of the Iron Curtain, Eastern European fighters, elder generation, they're kind of separating themselves, and boxing has truly become a global sport as well. And Turkey Al-Sheikh is a blessing in a sense too, because we're getting all these big fights because he's throwing money at fighters, and they actually want to fight. Mm-hmm. So I don't know I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on the whole, especially Pacquiao Mayweather.
Yeah, dude, that's a really good point, Keith. With Pacquiao, you're right. I remember the Cotto fight was at a catchweight. De La Hoya was just absolutely finished. The Margarito fight was a catchweight, I believe. You know what I'd be interested to see? The body weight percentage increase for Pacquiao. Like if we consider, let's say, his absolute prime to be like 126 to 135, somewhere in there, how much body weight percentage is going up from there to, let's say, welterweight versus what Usyk did at heavyweight, where he's fighting, literally think about it, Usyk is a 200-pound guy who bulks up, and he just fought a 280-pound man. That means that naturally Fury is 40% heavier. It's 40% of Usyk's natural body weight. Like he had to move up, fighting a guy at 280. So I agree with you that like Pacquiao did not do that. Pacquiao is one of my favorite fighters of all time. I loved watching him. And his ride was so much fun. The only thing that like comes close to it in my boxing lifetime is Gennady Golovkin being there in Los Angeles during all that for Pacquiao. And then Golovkin was so freaking cool. We don't have anything like that though right now, man. And that's to me like what's kind of lacking right now. Maybe it's Usyk though, and Usyk's that guy. I've had a lot of fun watching him. But all the fights are in Riyadh.
Yeah, and I will say this about Pacquiao: the beginning towards the beginning of his career, up until I would say 126. I'm not sure if he fought at one. He did fight at 130, and then his bookends are very impressive. Before David Diaz, and then beating Keith Thurman, beating Adrian Broner, Matisse. Those are very impressive, and like you said about Mayweather too. He had everything handpicked for him after probably left Top Rank as well. But yeah, we don't have that right now. And but I'm very optimistic on boxing, particularly because we're getting these bigger fights, and I think it's kind of shifting away from the focus. I know we talked about the focus of American boxing, where American fighters now they're like, okay, I'm getting the bad, quote unquote. Now I'm going to fight. I mean, good or bad, we're getting bigger fights. And actually touching on Clarissa Shields, yeah, I just think she's a talented fighter, but she has a huge ego, and I think she knows that she's not getting the attention she wants or she thinks she deserves. Mm-hmm. So that's why she's having this biopic as well too, which is actually very funny.
She comes off as an extremely insecure person, and I don't think she is as insecure as she comes off, but it's the way she tweets and the things she posts. She just has a really difficult personality. That's all I can say.
Yeah, her Twitter beats with Tank were pretty funny though too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, I appreciate the time. God bless you and the family. Merry Christmas to you guys, and then Happy New Year. We'll talk sometime next year.
Same to you, brother. Great to hear from you, man. Great call.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Man, what an awesome freaking show. What a great show. This is the way you wrap up the year. Thank you so much to all my super chats and to all the support guys, to all the great calls today. I'm going to go help my wife feed our daughters and then get ready for the Detroit Lions game that's coming on later tonight. So have a very happy, safe New Year, guys. What do I always say? Call the people you love. Let them know you love them. Call your mom, call your dad, Okay, let them know that you're thinking about them. If you can get around family and friends, please do it. And I'm really feeling positive about 2025. I think it's going to be a fantastic year all around. I'm feeling great about it. So I will see you guys next year. Ciao.